A very beautiful evening to you. You're most welcome to West Nile TV, and thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Real Talk. Every Saturdays here on West Nile TV from 8 to 10 p.m. with me, Lillian Ayot. Don't forget you can catch us on Zuko channel 007 and be a part of this discussion by following us on our socials on Facebook and on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe and leave a comment and what you think about today's topic. Otherwise, it's still the month of February, the month of love. I don't want to go back to the topics of Valentine's Day, but I know this year has been a very different year. We've seen less people crying, more flowers, caring and all that, but that is the month of love for you, and I hope some of you found love. A lot of things are going on in the country, here in West Nile, globally. I hope you're catching up. Get to check our platforms of West Nile TV to keep updated with latest information on the different programs here on West Nile TV. Otherwise, today we are on a very important topic. Now everyone has been experienced the fact that we've all had access to sexual information at different stages of life. We've seen kids of 3 years asking their parents, 3, 4, 5 asking their parents how babies are made, and the parents are stuck on how to answer such questions. And I know as some of you kept growing up, you were curious about some of the changes in your body and you had no one to tell you about. However, some of you were sharp enough to know what was happening to you and what the hell was going on, whatever or where it was going on. And today we are talking about sex education. Yeah, I know when some people hear sex education, they be like, you're using a very obscene language, but it is what it is. So today the questions are: at what age should one have access to information on sex education, and what kind of sex education should someone be subjected to? And before we go any further, we first need to understand what sex education is, because I know a lot of things already going on in on your mind. A lot of questions are running and a lot of thoughts. They will be answered here on this show, and that is why we sit here to answer those controversial questions, to clear your doubts, to make some things clear, and to get the right information, help each other, inform each other, and see how to go on with the different challenges that we face in life. And today we are joined in the studio by a very beautiful young lady. She is a youth activist, passionate about causes of the young people, and she has been one of the people going around in the community, giving out information on sex education to different communities at a different level. You are most welcome. Let me give you the chance to introduce yourself to our viewer.
Thank you so much, viewers. I am called Leku Gloria. I am an activist, just like the way she has said, and we have been empowering the communities, especially the young communities, about sex education, how you're supposed to take care of yourself, how you're supposed to handle issues concerning sex. So I am glad that I've been given the chance to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
For joining us on this show and taking your time to come and share information here with people listening out there. One thing that we see as a challenge is that when someone says, talks about sex education, there are already many things running in their mind, and some of them are negative. So as to be clear, help us understand the concept of sex education. Is it something that is bad, like people make it sound, or it's something that is, I don't know, just help us understand the concept?
Thank you so much. One controversial thing that our communities have is the fact that when we are talking about sex education, our mind definitely runs to the action, the act of having the sex. But sex education is more than just the action of having sex. Sex education is about having a comprehensive information about sex and how best you need to support yourself or your peers when it comes to matters related to sex. And when we are talking about sex education, it doesn't necessarily mean someone needs to indulge him or herself in the sexual actions. No. It entails the issues of pregnancy. It entails issues of STDs. It entails issues of how best one needs to abstain themselves from having sex. It entails a lot of things. So when we are talking about sex education, it is not necessarily the act of having sex. It is far beyond that. Yes.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for putting that out clear, and I hope our viewer has captured that and understood, so that it guides our discussion henceforth. And having talked about the different components that are involved there, so is sex education, only about abstinence? I mean, does it only teach people about abstinence, how to abstain from sex, don't have sex, stay away from sex, so they keep emphasizing that, and I believe that is why we have people to talk to you about sex education. So is sex education only about abstinence?
No. When we are talking about sex education, it is far beyond abstinence. It looks at matters like how best can I protect myself as a boy child or as a girl child when I'm indulging myself in the sexual act?
Okay.
That is one thing.
So take us through some of the types of sex education.
When we are talking about sex education, there is one that is called comprehensive sex education that entails everything. It does not necessarily look at a particular thing, but it looks at everything that has to do with sex. And then we have gender sex education. This helps us to identify how best can boys and girls better understand how to involve them in issues concerning sex and so on.
Okay, that is very interesting. Like you just like to emphasize, information aside that.
When it comes to cultural issues, basically our culture encourages us to not talk about sex. That is one thing we should put at the back of our minds. This is where now you will find a young teenager cannot even have the opportunity to talk about sex with their parents, with their aunties and uncles. So when it comes to cultural issues, we are a bit limited when it comes to sex education because it is looked at as a taboo. So many of the youths out there don't get the opportunity to be taken through how best they need to take care of themselves when it comes to sexual issues. So I believe our cultural leaders out there need to do a lot when it comes to sex education, especially in the current generation where things are deteriorating so much and teenagers are being exposed to these articles that talk about sex each and every day. I, for one, can say that unfortunately, I never had the chance of being taken sex education. When it comes to aunties supporting, it can just learn this thing as you grow up. There is no one who is there to teach you on how best you need to handle the things. So that's why I said culturally, we as teenagers, we have not been helped enough. So you will find that we found these things on the way, and whichever way we experienced it differs.
Okay, interesting about the African way. Still about the cultural specific sex education, the Western world perceives these things in a different way. I mean, they openly talk about the sex, about your body. This information is given to children regardless of their age. I wouldn't want to say regardless of their age, but they access it at a very tender age. And you know, like about cultural sensitivity, in Africa there are some things that we don't talk about here openly, but then we see there's sexual diversity where they have the other community where, you know, someone is told, still here in Africa, when we talk about the gender-specific sex education, we talk about a man and a woman. But in the Western world, it's something that is different. Apart from being a man or a woman, there's something where you're in between, where, okay, you fall somewhere in the LGBTQ community. So what is your perspective on that? Do you see that happening in Africa very soon? Because we see as a result of globalization, people are getting embraced, lost in the different culture, should I say infused. People are adopting the Western kind of culture. So do you see that kind of thing happening in Africa anytime soon?
For someone who loves Africa and someone who loves her culture so much, it is something that I think can happen, but as an individual, I wouldn't encourage people to indulge in such sexual act. You know, there's a reason as to why God created man and a woman, and if you want our generations to continue, the best way of indulging in sex would easily be a man and a boy. So issues concerning LGBTQ, I'll have nothing more to say. Thank you.
Okay. Interesting. So coming back here, I know there are a lot of myths that people have about sex education out there. You equally face a lot of challenges when you go out into the community to give information on sex and sexuality. And one common thing that parents normally have concern over is, you know, the information you're giving is not age appropriate. It could be that, and some of them say sex education is promoting sexual immorality among people, because you are teaching people how to have sex, you're teaching people how to use contraceptives, you are teaching people to use condoms, hence you promoting sex education. How true is that?
When it comes to the myths, there are so many myths that are going on about sex education. But if you look at the current generation, trust me, we need to do sex education as urgent as possible. It is no longer a want. It is a need. When you look at the rate at which our teenagers get pregnant, a child of 13 years, 14 years will get pregnant. But in an event where this child got an education or a guidance on how best they need to conduct themselves, it would have been easier. Just like the way I said, when we are doing sex education, it is not encouraging immorality, because this is where we will tell these young ones how best to support themselves, how best to indulge in the sexual act if they are to, how best to, like, there are so many things that we talk about. So if we don't talk about these things, this is where you will find a 13-year-old getting pregnant, the other one has STDs, the other one, like, there are so many things that are going on in the community. And it is because we, the young ones, are not being given the information about sex. Thank you.
Okay. Let's focus, zero down on contraceptives, where we talk about the different, does it entail a family method planning methods, but I want to zero down on the emergency pill that is being consumed like on a daily almost by young girls. It's a very sad truth that exists in our communities. We see young girls having access to contraceptives, and I don't know how frequent one is supposed to take these emergency pills. And so the question is, should teenagers be allowed access to to contraceptives without their parents' knowledge or consent?
The answer goes two ways. It can be a yes, or it can be a no. It can be a yes in a way that parents need to be made aware of what their children are going through. And that is one thing our parents, don't actually believe in. When you go to a parent and tell this parent, I want to talk to your child about sex education, one thing that crosses their mind is the fact that you are going to spoil my child. And yet, when this child gets pregnant out there, she comes back to you. You will take care of this child. After some time, she will go back, get pregnant again, bring another grandchild to you. So it will be a continuous thing. But when a child is given information and given the liberty to make choices, I believe it is easier to handle issues compared to when a child or when a teenager is not given any information and they just go and bump into these things. So when it comes to issues concerning contraceptive, I believe they should be made aware of how these things work in the first place, because there are so many ways these contraceptives work. And above all, we always encourage them to abstain when they can. But when you look at this current society, where every Wednesday in every trading center there is a ladies' night, it becomes so hard for you to start saying that abstain from sex. Because what do you think happens to them when they go for this ladies' night? Definitely they will indulge in sexual activities and so many other things that at the end of the day will end up into teenage pregnancy. But if a teenager is given an information about pregnancy, about sex education, it becomes easier. You know, they say information is power. They don't just say that statement for the sake of saying it. It carries a heavy weight when we talk about information. And it is through information that when someone is empowered, someone can be able to make choices that can help him or her to grow in the nearest future. Because the moment you get pregnant, that is a setback, whether you like it or not. And it is not issues concerning pregnancy only. STDs and so many other things. HIV is still roaming in the communities. It is one thing we no longer talk about as frequent as we used to, but it is one thing that is still out there that is killing our teenagers and the youths out. Thank you.
Oh, right. You rightfully put it out that information is power, and these young people have the right to access this information on sex and sexuality, understanding their body and how they're supposed to carry themselves when it comes to, you know, sex. And surprisingly, most of these people do not know that they have to consent to have sex. Your consent is very important, and one of the ways that they can get to know that they have a right is through sex education. But speaking about information, yeah, they have a right to access this information, but who is responsible for giving out this information? Should they just go out there and pick this information from anywhere, or so who are the persons responsible for giving out this information? Let us start right from home with the parents.
Yes, rightly you've said it. The first person who is supposed to give sex education to a child is the parent. But the question is, how many parents give sex education to their children? You realize that parents no longer have time for generally talking to their children. I am used to a school setting, so you'll find me saying learners a lot. But when we come to hope settings, it is so difficult for parents to open up, even to talk about body changes. They don't. Our culture has brought us up in a way that we need to conceal information. We need to keep quiet because it is not right to talk about some things. So when it comes to sex education, I believe parents need to play a greater role. Then the government facilities, the hospitals, has counselors that can support learners. Sorry, not learners. That can support teenagers out there. But how many of them access? This is the same facility where your parent goes. This is the same facility your uncles go, your aunties go. So it becomes a little bit challenging. That's why at a certain point we are advocating for safe spaces in these hospitals so that a teenager can go or a youth can go knowing that my information is going to be kept safe, and knowing that wherever I am going to this place, it is not an open place for people to see that I am going to meet counselor so and so. Of course, people will always have their perception about these things. But if there are safe spaces in these hospitals and these clinics, it becomes easy for people to access information about sex education.
Before you go any further, you know, there have been concerns over these safe spaces that are in the government or health facilities, wherever they are. These young people have raised complaints, maybe concerns of being judged by the health workers. You know, you go there, this is a teenager who knows if I come to the health facility, maybe I can get implants, I can get condoms, I can get contraceptives, but then you are at the facility and the person attending to you starts, you know, telling you are small, why are you using this? Why don't you do this? So most of them tend to stay away. How is that being addressed?
I believe as a health personnel, they are being trained on how best to support their clients, regardless of the age of the clients. So when you start judging a patient simply because they are younger, it is not right. So I believe teenagers need to be treated with the utmost care, the best care that you can as a health worker. Because by the time someone decides, let me go to this particular hospital for support, it's not an easy thing. Because there are so many things that they put in the back of their heads. There are people who are going to look at me. There are people who are going to judge at me. So when this person masters the courage to go to a facility, I believe they needed to be treated in the best possible way they can.
Okay, so a safe space should be a safe space where someone can openly talk about the sexual challenges they're facing in order to get the right information regarding. Let us talk about other stakeholders in this, but do not forget you can be a part of this conversation by going on our Facebook and YouTube channel, where you can like, react, share to your friends so that we know exactly what you think about today's topic of discussion. And now coming back to the discussion, let us understand the role of teachers, the teachers at school, because most of the teenagers are pupils, school-going children, the ones who are at school, and let's say these parents at home, they do not get this information from the parents for different reasons that you had already mentioned. Some parents are busy, and some parents say these children are still too young to have access to such kind of information. So in cases where a child fails to get such information from home and they are school going, what role do the teachers play in giving sex education to the pupils or students?
When it comes to a school setting, we all know that teachers play one of the greatest roles when it comes to nurturing of these young ones. We saw what happened during COVID period when these teenagers were home with their parents. They got pregnant, they went through everything that someone could possibly go through, but they were in the care of their parents. But when they're in school, teachers play one of the greatest roles in nurturing these learners, especially when it comes to sex education. And when you go to school, the education is now limited to puberty, and in most cases what they talk about is abstinence. But looking at the society right now, looking at the access to information, looking at the fact that our teenagers are 100% sexually active right now, is it only the issue of maintenance, abstinence from sex that we need to talk to them about? I believe as time goes on, you know, as one of the government policies, they are suggesting the bringing in of contraceptives for these teenagers who are in school. So is it something that we need to adapt as a community? Because talking about abstinence is no longer a thing. Yes, we write abstain from sex.
So it's not effective.
It's no longer effective, you know. It is beyond telling someone to abstain. So after abstinence, now that you've realized this person is not abstaining, how best can we support these young ones?
Before you go further, I would want to hear your personal opinion on the government's move to allow young girls of 15 years have access to contraceptive. Do you think that's a right move, or it's a flop?
When I focus on the current generation that we are in, personally, I would encourage the government to go on with the idea, because when you look at our generation, we are really active when it comes to sex. That is the plain truth. Even if we are trying to live in denial and say these are things that are not happening, you know, these are things that are happening. So if the government thinks and believes that the best way to reduce on teenage pregnancy is by introducing contraceptives, especially to the girls who are above the age of 15, I would highly encourage it, because I believe it is for the betterment of the entire country. Thank you.
Okay. You know, one constant thing that we are talking about is the fact that there is a high increase. You know, young people today are more involved in sexual activity than before. As parents, you cannot deny the fact that even your 5-year-olds are already doing something, you know. Pay close attention to these children, or when they're playing or conversing with their friends. You'll be shocked to hear some of the things that they discuss out with their friends. And so, you know, the argument parents keep giving is that they're still young, they don't know these things, so they are not entitled to have access to such information. But then we're saying they already have access to such information, and so they need this information. But the question is, what kind of information are they allowed to know at this point? Because now a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old asking you, "Mommy, how a baby is made?" Or maybe a baby is made from the a baby is bought from the market. So now, as a parent, it's upon you to craft a response for such a child. And now the question we are asking is, at what age, or what kind of age brackets, the kind of information that should be given to the different age brackets of young people out there, and also what are some of the factors that influence, you know, the age of accessing sex education?
When it comes to information and the age bracket, you realize that youths or teenagers who are in a town setting are easily exposed to information about sex education. And when you go to the rural setting, it is a different thing. So I believe a child at the age of 5 is ready to be taken through some like sex education. Just like the way we said, sex education is not necessarily all about the sexual act, but it entails so many things. You realize that there are children who even start seeing their menses at the age of 8. So if you're there waiting for your child to reach 10, 12, 13 before you start this information, it will be a shock on your side as a parent, because if you prepare this child early enough, it becomes easy for them to handle some of these issues. And there are things that you can talk about when it comes to sex education. You can talk about puberty, especially for these young ones. You will look at the age category. What can I tell to these young ones from the age of 5 up to 10? Definitely you will not have the information. You will not share the same thing. Like what you share to a 5-year-old will not be the same thing that you will share with a 10-year-old. It will equally not be the same thing that you will share with a 15 or 20-year-old. So you will find out of how best you can package these informations to suit that age bracket.
Okay. One factor we agree on here is that sex education is very important. Even at a very tender age, you should start talking to your 5-year-olds about, they're already seeing you breastfeeding and they're curious, what is that you're giving the baby? You have to tell them that is your breast, I don't know, but you can tell them. This is where the aspects of gender come in. Such little information. You are a boy, you are a girl, that is your sister, this is your brother. Of course, they are not of the same gender. Such information is very vital at that kind of age. And we've seen that, like we have discussed, parents should talk to their children about sex, give them sex education. We have teachers who play a part, even the government. But most importantly, something that we cannot avoid is that these young people, we have our peer group where we have discussions on different matters. At that level, they cannot be discussing business. They cannot be discussing maybe future plans of what they should do. It's a curiosity. Adolescents, at this point, my friend has boobs. I don't have boobs. I want to understand why you have and why I don't have. I'm seeing you doing something. Maybe another watched something on television and I don't know about it. I'm telling you, I don't understand. And there's that curiosity. People share information, different information on different things. So every child access to information on sex differs. But one thing is they'll always have discussion and share such information. So what influence does peer discussions have on one's access to sex education?
When it comes to peer access to information, it is one of the greatest sex information that someone can put out there. Because just like the way you have said, when someone sees my friend already is developing breast, they will want to know more. How is the whole process going? When someone has had, let me say, sex with a boyfriend for the first time, these teenagers discuss these things amongst themselves. And definitely when a peer comes and tells the other this is what it feels, trust me, it will either encourage the other group members or discourage the other group members. So in the peers, what kind of information should we encourage them to share should be the question, because not everything needs to be put out there. How best can we package this information in order that in the peers that we are trying to support, how best can we support them in order for them to perceive this information positively, in order for them to protect one themselves and then the other. And when you look at gender issues, people think when we are talking about sex, boys should be separated from girls. No, me, I believe we need to bring all these two parties together, because the boys have sisters at home, the girls have brothers at home whom they can support in one way or the other when the parents are not there. So when we are educating these youths and in their peers, I believe it is encouraged for us to involve them equally. so that they can be able to give maximum support to one another.
Okay, very interesting. And peer discussions or peer group discussions are one of the leading reasons as to why we have more young people indulging into sexual activities before they are ready for this. So if we do not address this, we are going to continue talking about rise in teenage pregnancies, unwanted pregnancies, abortions, but above all STDs and STIs. That is very common among the young people because of frequently engaging into sexual activity. So how can we best tackle this? What influence can parents have on the kind of information that their children get from their peer?
When you look at matters concerning parents and peers, it is a little bit tricky, because when the peers meet, the parents are always not there. That is one thing. And usually what we do is we encourage group discussions in schools where we meet these peers and we encourage them to talk amongst themselves, guiding them on what specifically they need to talk about. So parents will totally not have control of what their children should discuss when it comes to sex education. That is one thing that I believe. But with their guidance, it can be easy for them to support. But the question is, do they even have the time? That is one major question that parents needed to help us with, because if they don't have time to talk about this sex education, who else will?
Wow. Okay. That question has also left me thinking. So if the parents don't have time to talk to their children, who else will? Because someone out there may already think this child has access to such information from the parents, but unfortunately the parents don't have time to talk to those children about, maybe because they're busy or they feel the children are not yet ready for such information. And yes, the education institution is doing a lot in availing such kind of information. That is why we have senior woman teachers and senior man teachers. Okay. Yes, that is why we have them to address issues of the body changes, sex, and they are also critical in noticing such pattern of behavior among the young people, and that some parents are not able to recognize. They call, especially in these mixed schools where some parents are called for disciplinary, they tell you, we got your child involved in sexual activity with another, and such a parent starts saying, no, you're lying, my child is not capable of this. But have you taken time to learn your child and how your child behaves, what your child does, especially concerning his or her sexual life? Are you aware the kind of information he or she has access to? And let's not forget that a lot of people still have negative attitude when it comes to the consumption of sex education. They have different reasons for it, maybe because it's not age appropriate, it promotes immorality, but the baseline is that in this current, in the 21st century, it's not a want, like she already put it, it's not a want, but it's a need. So do the needful and give the young people the information that they need to know, because if you don't tell them yourself the right way, give them the right information, they're going to have access to this information whichever way, and it's not going to be discriminated. They're going to have access to the good and to the bad. So the different stakeholders involved in this, the different people who are involved in this, need to work hand in hand to ensure this information reaches the young people. Don't go away. We are going for a short break, and when we come back, we shall talk about the importance of sex education and what absence of sex education can mean in our community, and also what role media plays in all this, the impact that media has on the young people when it comes to access to sex education. Don't go away.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
AFCON, all 52 games live only on StarTimes. StarTimes brings you Africa's biggest football tournament, AFCON 2023 live in English and Luganda commentary. Starting January 13, don't miss Mo Salah, Sadio Mane or Nana. Lead the hunt for gold as they take center stage. Renew your StarTimes subscription today and enjoy all 52 matches in HD live on Sports Premium and Sanyuka Prime. StarTimes, the official broadcaster of AFCON 2023. This message is powered by Techno, the official sponsor of AFCON 2023.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Welcome back from that break. My name is Lillian Ayot and this is The Real Talk every Saturdays from 8 to 10 p.m. here on West Nile TV, lighting up the region. You can get us on Zuku channel 0073, and also engage with us on our socials, Facebook and YouTube channel. We always stream live, and there you can leave a comment on what you think about this topic of discussion on our daily weekly topics of discussion. Don't forget, your voice matters. You can also share with your friends, and together we get to hear your different opinions on this topic. And today we are discussing one sensitive topic in our community, that is sex education. At what age should teenagers or children have access to sex education, considering the fact that we live in the 21st century where information is in abundance, where anyone can access information at any time, and any kind of information, be it good or bad, that is all dumped on the internet everywhere that people have access to. So that is a question for all of us to answer going forward. We had already had a discussion on how the different people, like the parents, the teachers in school settings, and the different people like the government also can contribute to providing adequate, accurate information on sex education to the young people out there, to guide the way they live their life and also make informed decisions on their sexual life and have healthy relationships. So what do you think about that? A lot of people don't see the need for sex education. I know there are programs, school outreach programs that are majorly focused on sex education, and also online information, blogs out there, different medias giving out information on sex, and some people don't see the use. But we want to make you understand why we need sex education. If you think we do not need sex education, look around in your community and see what the young people are doing when it comes to their sexual lives and their relationships. So we in the studio here, we have a youth activist. She's called Gloria. Gloria, thank you for taking out your time to be with us here on West Nile TV. So why do we need sex education? Why do you go into the community to talk to them about sex?
Thank you so much. We go into the communities. We go into the communities.
Okay, yes. So I know you people go into the community, and when you reach there, people always have this in mind, that you are giving out information that is not appropriate for the young people out there for their consumption. And one major thing they always have in their mind is sex education promotes immorality. Reason being that it talks about how people can have safe sex, that is by the use of contraception, or we all know what contraceptions are. The most commonly used is the early morning pills or the emergency pills that unfortunately or fortunately, based on the circumstance that young people are using, depending on whatever reasons, sometimes these are used in cases where someone has been raped or defiled. And also the fact that we cannot deny our young people, our teenagers are sexually active. So in instances where they cannot abstain, like it's emphasized in the abstinence only sex education, there is need for them to use condoms or use these pills to prevent pregnancy, because one big problem that we're also grappling with is the issue of teenage pregnancy. So that is why we have some of these people coming out to talk in the community, and we still hope that with due time people's perceptions are able to change. And we have Gloria here in the studio, who has also been going into the community talking to people about sex education. So why do you go into the community to give people such information, despite the fact that some of them take it in a negative way?
Thank you so much. Sorry, I kind of have cough. You know, it is a dry season everywhere. You will
The
find people
heat.
coughing there and there.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, we go out into the communities to talk about sex education. One, because we need to make youths and teenagers aware for the purposes of making choices. When someone is given the ability to make choice in whatever circumstances they are in, it becomes easier for them to decide what they want to do with their lives. When it comes to sex education, a girl child can be able to say no to sex when he or she has an informed and empowered view about sex. So it becomes difficult for a girl child to say no to sex when there is nothing, no information about how best they need to take care of themselves, how they need to protect themselves. This is a situation where you will even realize some even indulge in sex without protection. And yet, if they had information, if they had the choice to choose between whether I need to have a protected sex, or whether I need to have a contraception, or whether I don't need to have sex, it becomes easier for them to make such a choice. So, if we leave them not to make choices, if we don't do sex education, it becomes hard for them to make choices. So basically, the major importance of having sex education is to empower these learners. It's to empower these youths and these young teenagers to make choices that are free of charge. And you know, they always say information is power. But when you don't have that information, that is where you will find a teenager getting pregnant. At the end of the day, who loses? It is the teenager. But if these teenagers are taken through the education, it becomes easier even for the boy child to say, if we have unprotected sex, you will get pregnant. So there are things that we can do not for you to get pregnant. That is where the issues of condoms can come in. That is where the issues of contraceptives can come in. But if they are denied this information, it becomes easy for them to go astray. So once they are informed, once they have access to this information, just like the way that you said, if no one can give them these informations, there are so many places that they can get these informations to. When you go out there, these youths have smartphones. And who limits what someone should watch on these social medias? No one. So if someone has a phone, a smartphone, and has access to data, it becomes so easy for them to access information. So it is upon us now to see how best to package our information. So I believe sex education is very, very vital in the community that we are in.
Okay, that is very important, just the way you have, stressed it. And at this time, I believe some people still don't see the need for children, maybe under the age of 10, to have access to sex education. So how does that help for children under the age of 10?
Just like the way I clearly put it, we package information to suit a particular age bracket. When it comes to issues of sex education, what best can we tell up when it comes to a 5-year-old? Definitely we will talk about issues of abstinence. We will encourage abstinence more when we are talking to a 5-year-old. But if it is a 15-year-old, it ceases to be an issue. When we are looking at a 15-year-old, this is someone who is sexually active at that particular age, looking at puberty and those things. So when we are giving sex education to a 15-year-old, definitely we'll talk about these options. It is all about laying the options on table, not you deciding for someone how best they need to live their lives. You cannot tell me I need to take contraceptives when I feel it is not the best option for me, when I feel the best option for me at that particular time is abstinence. So you give the advantages and disadvantages of all these sex educations and the forms, once they have the information, they will be able to make the choices easily. So in the nearest future, you will realize that a girl can be able to say, if you don't have a condom, I will not have sex with you. That is power of information. A boy child will say, if we don't go to test, we will not have this sex. That is power of information. Just like the way we said, sex education is not only about getting pregnant after having sex. It's beyond that. The STDs are there. The HIVs are there. Like, there's so many things that we need to watch out when it comes to sex education.
Okay, aside from helping the young people understand their body and make informed sexual, decisions and all that, we also see sex education helps reduce the rate of teenage pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases among the young people. But one concern is that there is high rate of teenage pregnancy and sexually transmitted disease among these young people. Should we say that the information you're giving out is helping out all these young people are just not consuming the information rightly?
There is a saying, do what I say. So when we go out there in the communities and we talk about these things, just like the way I said, we lay options on the table. So it is upon an individual to digest these informations. And how best one digests this information is seen in the results. So if I have given you an option, or if I have tried to guide you, to tell you, to educate you on how best you need to take care of yourself, and you choose not to accept it and you do things your way, personally, me, I would say, I have tried to lay out the information. This is like being in a class, and my dad used to give us an example. Education is like eating food. When food is put on the table, you will scoop as much as you want. When you feel you're satisfied, you will stop eating. That is the same thing that applies to sex education. If someone has labored to come to you and tell you, when you do this, these are the repercussions, you need to do this to take care of yourself, and you choose not to accept the information, it becomes your own judgment and it becomes your own cross to carry. This is like a government policy. There are so many policies that the government has brought upon people, but how many are embracing it? So as a society, our mindset is still on the fact that sex education is not supposed to be an open thing to everyone. It is something that we need to bump on. When you go to a church, what they said, what they encourage sex, but only after marriage. So when you come to culture, equally they encourage sex after marriage. So when you look at these things, someone growing up knowing that sex is supposed to be practiced after marriage, when you come to talk to such a person about sex education, it becomes a little bit hard for them to comprehend. But truth be told, there are teenagers who are out there who are really, really embracing sex education, and they're trying their level best to take care of themselves. You know, when you reach out to like 100 people and you manage to convince 20 to take good care of them, that is a plus. Compared to not doing anything at all in the family.
All right. Interesting coming out there. That we are able to tell that the young people out there who are able to say no to sex or yes when they want to have sex, and who are able to know that I'm supposed to take a pill after having unprotected sex. So that we have young people out there, young boys who can use condoms so that they don't, put girls at risks of getting pregnant, and also young people who know that when they have have unprotected sex, they can get STDs and STIs. That is the fact that they have access to accurate information on sex education. As we conclude, let's look at one big thing, that is the media, the internet that is out there. It has a lot of information at anyone's disposal. As long as you have a computer, a gadget that can access internet, a phone, and we live in an era where we have access to these things and anyone can get information. We all know how to use Google, we know how to use ChatGPT, everything to access the kind of information you have. There's so many blogs out there, there are so many things put out there, so much information where people get informed, people get misinformed, people get disinformed at the same time. And it's critical that you should choose information that is only good for your consumption. And in an incident where young people have access to all this information without parental guidance, and parents have very limited control over what their children consume these days, basically because they don't spend much time with them, or they are not there when they are using these things. And so they have access to this information on sex and they consume a lot of this. So how has the media shaped the young people's attitudes, sexual behavior, and everything about sex that they do these days? What impact has this had on the young people today?
Honestly speaking, the media, I believe personally, has done harm, especially when you look at the internet aspect of it, the YouTubes and so on. Information that is there is for everyone's consumption, and regardless, anything that you need about sex, you can find it. How I wish there was limitations to some of the informations that is being put out there for people to consume. But the unfortunate bit is you can never tell what age bracket is this particular person who is trying to seek information about sex education. Then this brings us back to the parents, because if you are able to guide your child well enough, it becomes easy for them to find information that are appropriate for themselves to consume. But if you leave a child there, definitely the most informations that they will look out for will be these ones that they will hear from their peers. This is what I went through. How do you think it happens? And that is where they will now go to Mr. Google. How does this happen? When I want to have protected sex, how should I do it? All the questions concerning sex. And yet, if we gave this information to them in a layman language, it would be so easy for them to know what exactly to Google about when it comes to sex education. There is a saying, if you shape a child in a particular way, that is how they will grow. Children are like trees. If you don't trim them, they will grow in any way. But if you trim your trees very well, if you know that this particular tree, I want to get timber out of it, how should you take care of it? That is like, a child is like that. If you want to get the best out of your child, what are the things that you need to put forward? How best are you going to support this child in their bringing? And sex education is one of the key things that we need to talk to them about. So, in as much media plays a greater role, parents equally play one of the greatest role, because it is from the parents that the child or these children will be able to know these are the things that I need to consume, and these are things that I don't need to consume. Thank you.
Okay, now the fact that the internet, the media is out there for people to access information, what can be done to ensure that young people out there have access to accurate information on sex? Should there be regulation from the government? What role do the parents play on this? And also you as a member of the community.
I believe there should be some kind of regulations from the government part, because if we put everything out there, that is where our children will get more spoiled, because they already have an imaginary view of how sex is supposed to be or how sex education is supposed to be. So when you put everything out there, it becomes easy for them to access it and use it whichever way. You know, information that is put out there, you can either choose to use it for the rightful ways or you choose to use it for the wrongful ways. So if there are some regulations that can be put in order to stop these teenagers from accessing some information, I believe it would be much better.
Okay, thank you so much for your thoughts, your opinions on this topic of today on sex education, and also thank you so much for going out in the community, for giving the young people the information that they need regarding their body, their sexual life, their relationships. You know, it's important for us to make informed decisions from informed points of view. That's why we say some young people don't know they have a right to say no to sex, and such information helps them know their rights and also protect themselves in whatever way that they can. And as we close, what would be your last message to our viewer out there?
My last message to our viewers out there would simply be to encourage our parents to take up the mantle of being a parent. Being a parent of this generation is not all about provision, ensuring that your child has school fees, has eaten food, has medical care. It is far beyond that. So as a parent, I am encouraging all of us to spare time for our children to talk about some of these realities that hit us so hard in our lives. As society keeps on changing, we also need to adopt and take our children through the process. Let's not leave our young ones in the hands of the maids only. As we are looking for the money to support them, let us also spare our time in order to encourage them, in order to show them that we are with you in the process, in order to prune them, just like the way I said trees need to be pruned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gloria, for that message, especially going out to our parents and young people out there. I hope someone has learned something from today's discussion. And also parents should pay attention to their children. You know, you can have a child of 3 years asking you questions that you don't expect them to ask. Gone are the days when people didn't have access to so much information at the same time, and this is the 21st century where you can get any information anywhere, especially on the internet, where you can get to watch things that you have never seen. And then you know, young minds are very curious. They're curious, they want to know, they want to experience. And in an instance where the children get to ask you some questions, you need to pay attention and give them the appropriate information. We say age is very important when we are giving out such information, but also no one is too young to have access to this information. You know, as you're trying to protect this child, you may deny him or her information that is very important, and the consequences may not be so cute, as we all know. So it's important for us to spare time to give this information to our children. And also, as they're in their different places like schools, the schools should also give them such information. And also people like Gloria, who continue to visit the community, the schools, the different places to provide such information. We also say thank you very much. And the government's effort to see that there is accurate information, you know, in the reproductive health units where they have this information, the different health centers where we have the youth-friendly corners where they access this information. Most importantly, sex education helps young people make informed decisions when it comes to their sexual life and also have very healthy relationships, and it plays a great role in preventing teenage unwanted pregnancies and the spread of STIs or STDs among these young people. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. That has been it on today's discussion on sex education. This is The Real Talk with me, Lillian Ayot. Don't forget, every Saturdays we sit here to discuss different topics where we all get to contribute, we all get to do what we think and how best we can deal with challenges in the communities. And don't forget, we are on Starter on Zuku channel 0073, and we always stream on our Facebook and our YouTube channels. Always be a part of our programs. Don't go away. Stay tuned for the for the next program. And I want to say thank you so much to Gloria for joining us today in the studio. Our director Elliot, thank you so much for the job well done. Our producer, thank you so much, Bonnie, for doing such a great work, and thank you, Wasnal TV. From me to you, have a very, very lovely evening. And for you who are going out, please enjoy careful. Have a good evening. Ciao.